Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to CHLY 101.7 FM. I am Kathy Holmes. I'm proud to be your host for Act 3. Really glad you joined us today. And I'm going to ask you to reach into your pocketbook. Yeah, I know. You're thinking, what the heck are you talking about? But really what I'm talking about is that there is an incredible hospice dream home lottery. And with me in today's Zoom booth is Carrie Ann Cody from Hospice and the Home Builders Association. And we're going to talk all about this wonderful new feature in our community. How are you, Carrie Ann? Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm fantastic. How are you doing so far?
I am delicious in every way. At least that's what I tell myself in the morning. So I can
Perfect.
through on Mondays. Mondays are always a little more challenging, aren't they?
For sure.
How about if you tell us a little bit about who you are and about the Dream Home Lottery and about, all the good stuff. Let's start to unpack some of this groovy stuff.
Sounds good. So I'm Carrie Ann Cody. I'm the CEO for the Canadian Home Builders Association for Vancouver Island. And with this project, I'm the project manager from the charity side for the Dream Home Lottery project. So I've been involved since the early days. So January 2020 is when Hospice was kind of mulling around the idea of doing this Dream Home Lottery. And so I took a meeting, and from that, we now have it underway. Ticket sales are going. So that's pretty much my role.
Well, managing such a big project is not always easy. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different players for sure. So I congratulate you, first of all, for taking on such a huge responsibility, because it's a big job. But what I'm really interested in, and I know our listeners are interested in, is more about the house, because, housing market has been crazy. Things are through the roof. And an inexpensive ticket could potentially put you in a really great place. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So that's the easy part of my job, is talking about the house, because there's so much to talk about. So it's a 3,000 square foot home. It's ocean view. It's mountain view. It's being built by Momentum Design Build. They're a Hazelwood company. It also features a beautiful dunk pool that's on the view side of the property. So you'll be able to sit in your pool and look out to the ocean. It's stunning. It's a gorgeous house.
So when you talk about a dunk pool, remind me, is that a cold plunge pool, or is that like just a regular swimming pool? Like what is a dunk pool? I'm sorry, I just don't know.
So it's a regular swimming pool, but it's like a container that it comes in. So it's a 10 by 20 dunk pool. The company's Dunk Pools in Nanaimo that donated it to us. So it's quite a cool feature.
That's a huge feature.
Yeah.
Thank you for donating that, you guys. That's a big deal.
It's been definitely one of the bigger talking points, because in our photo that's out online that everyone can see, you can see that pool with a beautiful, it's got the little bit of a terrace around it. So it's got some chairs and stuff. What you can't see is that the gorgeous view that you're going to get from sitting in that pool. So
wow. Well, it is a beautiful part of the world, and I must say that Lanceville in itself is gorgeous. Is Lanceville Foothills a new development, or is it a development that's been around for a long time with a lot of older properties, or how is that property?
Yeah, so the Foothills has been around for a little while in different under different ownership, but it became the Foothills as we know it today. In 2017, they launched and sold out the first installment of the first phase in record time, I think. And so they're just about to launch the next phase for the Foothills. It eventually is going to have a village. It's going to have its own shops and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's going to be it already is incredible. Gorgeous views, gorgeous properties, gorgeous houses.
No kidding.
But what's to come is pretty exciting as well.
Well, I'm kind of delighted by the what's to come. I'm a mainland girl from way back, although I've lived on the island now for about 11 years. And we, driving up to Whistler is that beautiful kind of very funky kind of cool area of the lower, well, not lower mainland, but it's kind of really as it goes up there. And so when I think about having these beautiful little homesteads around with a little shopping, it kind of gives me that Whistler feeling.
For sure.
Is it kind of a Whistlery kind of feeling there, or is it more, I don't know, conventional, contemporary?
Yeah, I would say kind of a mix between Artisan Square and Bowen Island and Whistler sort of vibes is what the vision will be. I think it's something that your listeners are going to want to kind of stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of announcements about that coming shortly. But it's pretty exciting.
I'm so stoked. I'm really stoked. And now really the reason I'm stoked isn't so much because it's a beautiful house. The bonus is if you buy a ticket and you win right on, that's amazing. But in actual fact, it's the tickets that make a difference. So tell us a little bit about what the money is being used for.
For sure. So when this, I'll call it the brainchild of hospice, when this kind of came up, their end goal is to have a hospice house with beds. So currently they have beautiful services, wraparound services for grief support, for therapy for children. The resources and support that they provide is incredible. However, our palliative care unit is at about a 200% capacity in the hospital. And so hospice has the dream and vision of being able to provide a house with beds that they would be able to provide some further support to our community. And it's going to take a nest egg in a bit. So this is kind of the first step to get there. It's kind of, I'm calling it the catapult. So this is going to launch them into really being able to explore those conversations further. So this ticket, like it's such an incredible opportunity. Someone's going to win an almost $2 million house for $100. Like it's valued at 1.7 right now. So someone's going to win it for $100, which is fantastic in itself, but you can feel so good that even if you lose, the money is going to such an amazing organization. When I first had the first meeting with them, I think within 10 minutes of being in the meeting with hospice, I was teary-eyed and was like, where do I sign? This is such an incredible group of people. Like, what can I do to support this? So, so it's been an incredible 2 years getting to know their volunteers, their staff, their executive director. And it's something that you can feel really good about supporting.
I'm going to be a little bit transparent here for our listeners. Not that they really want to hear my story. They're really here to listen to you, but I'm going to share a little bit. I would not be the person I am today without hospice. I lost my mother in 2002. 8 months later, I lost my sister at the age of 43, leaving behind 3 not super young children, but early teens, early adults. And so during the process in both cases, and I lived on the mainland at the time when they passed over, their hospice society was very much part of the hospital. And like our hospice in Nanaimo, they had the dream of building a hospice house that was able to take care of people. But at the time, in 2002, that simply wasn't happening. What I would really want listeners to know from a receiving perspective is that it was hospice that held my hand after she passed away. It was hospice that held my heart when I was in the grieving process. It was hospice that had the most incredible volunteer program I have ever witnessed in my life to this day, with the talent of trainers that knew and know how to listen and hold space for people. Mm-hmm. And also the grieving process is more than just about people dying. It's a lot about the dreams of the future, things that you wish that you'd had and no longer have. And so resolving those things. And so you're right, it's $100 that you get a house maybe, but the $100 looks after people like myself who during the worst days of grief were held up in strength by hospice. And I get emotional even thinking about it. Like, I'm very attached to hospice for that reason, as is my sister Karen, who lives in Alberta. You know, we both went through an incredible amount during the loss of both our sister and our mom. And so, yeah, the struggles are real. And especially now, right, with all the stuff that's happening in the universe and, you know, disasters, natural disasters, heat domes, job losses, there's a lot of scary stuff going out there. And hospice also helps with that. So I'm going to return the conversation back to you, but I just wanted people to hear that, you know, from real life journeyed experience, hospice matters. And so do the people that go.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful story that you just shared. And I would say that's one major takeaway that I've taken away during this process is, like, we're in person, Paige and I, the executive director, are in person selling tickets. We're at different community events. And the stories that people have shared with us, like, I consider myself, like, maybe not, what's the word? I don't think I'm too soft-hearted, but these stories, like, they'll melt you so fast. And the people that work there are special people. The volunteers are special people. Like, it's amazing, the stories that I've heard, that people have shared with us. And I just can't get over the beautiful humans that work for hospice. They're incredible people.
And the beautiful humans that volunteered for hospice, because a lot of them give of their time, right, to be in support of people. And hospice does not, it is a Canadian-wide organization. It's not that it's just a local chapter, but our local chapter in this community has really stepped up and done a lot of work with the community behind closed doors, things that people don't see, that people don't know. What have been some of your experiences in working in this process with hospice and the volunteers for your own building of community, for your own building of the Dream Home Lottery, for all of that stuff? What's really been inspirational for you?
I would say how easy some of the sponsorship conversations are. People are very willing to come to the table. We took on a big house for our first one to be.
It's a big project.
Yep. And so we released an RFP for the builder fall of 2020, and Momentum Design Build put in a stunning application with this beautiful home that you can't really see behind me, but it's there. And then from that, we've had subsequent conversations with tradespeople, with a whole slew of community organizations to come to the table to make this happen. From a building standpoint, we priced all this out pre-COVID. and early into COVID. And so anybody who has done any renovation or watched the news lately, so that's been kind of part of my role, is to work with our different tradespeople to offset some of those cost increases that we've seen. And like I said, it hasn't been that difficult of a role. People are so willing to help hospice. It's been really heartwarming. That's how I'd put it. It's been heartwarming.
Yeah. And I feel that your heart is very warm in our conversation. It radiates through this screen as I watch you on Zoom. Our listeners on the radio, I'm sure, can hear it as well in your voice. You're quite right about the cost of building supplies, though. That must have really made a difference to your bottom line as far as the profitability, so that you can actually, use this money for the cause that it's intended to be. Have you had any difficulty in selling tickets?
So one of the biggest challenges I think that we were up against is this is a brand new charity.
Sure.
So, hospice isn't new, obviously, but this is a brand new initiative. So as we're building social media accounts, as we're kind of connecting with our community, we really needed that megaphone. Mm-hmm. So I would say it was a bit of a slow process. And with lottery and gaming, you only have a 6-month window to sell tickets. So it's a bit of a short runway. So I would say Nanaimo's been incredible. Like, we get to see on the back end the geographics of where people are buying from. And Nanaimo has come to the table like you wouldn't believe. So we just are still trying to find that platform to get outside of Nanaimo. We still have some tickets to sell, and we can sell them until April 7th at 11:59 p.m. So
no, this is good. Yeah. And by the way, I will put a link at the bottom of the YouTube version of this conversation. Will be on the link. Having said that, this is a great opportunity. It's a perfect segue for people to go grab a piece of paper and a pencil or pen or whatever writing implement you'd like to use, so that you can write down the information on how you can get your tickets. So by all means, when I started the hour, I said, I want you guys to bring out your wallet. There's a reason I'm asking you to do this. It is for amazing, amazing work that the hospice organization in our community does. And, I know a lot of people want to move the island. Lots of people are talking about it. So for those that are listening to us from the Sunshine Coast, thank you for listening. We're always glad that you tune in to CHLY 101.7. How'd you like to buy a ticket and live over here? Right? Just saying. right? Grab a piece of
the words
paper,
of my husband. My husband always says, you can't afford not to. Like,
yeah,
tickets are $100. You can't afford not to buy them.
you can't afford not to. And I will be buying my ticket as well. So, and before the 7th. So we'll make sure, I wouldn't mind, having a dunk pool looking out over the ocean. So yeah, I can take that.
It's pretty exciting. I really I like in love with this house.
Well, it's never, for me, it's not the house, it's the view.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Buying that kind of property now is very difficult to do. It's hard to find affordable waterfront property, or where you get a really good view of waterfront property, right? And so, $1.7 million is out of my price range for sure, but $100 isn't.
Exactly. And the foothills itself is also a pretty special development. So something I didn't mention earlier, they've protected, I think, 730-ish acres that has been donated to the district of Lanceville, and that's going to be protected parkland. So it's protected for your hiking, it's going to be for mountain biking, it's for your walking, if you don't want to call it hiking. It's going to be, I love that.
I do too. Walking, if you don't walk, I love that. Actually, that's such an important statement.
I think walking is just slower, but yes,
the connotation with hiking is that there are hills, right? That it's a bit more of a challenge. Whereas walking, you're just kind of strolling along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a special piece. And so to put that into context, that's the equivalent to Central Park in New York. So that's going to be in your backyard of this beautiful house. So we're pretty fortunate that the Foothills is also an incredible partner that came to the table when we came to them with this crazy idea. They donated a big chunk of the land to us. So we are so thankful that they were able to.
Yes, good for you. I mean, I honestly, that's huge.
It really is.
Yeah. It's one thing to donate parts of a house, right? Different components all add up to make a great big house, right? So it's very different to have that, but the land in itself is huge. It's huge. So, but I also want to share that there's more than just the house on the table, that there's also a 50-50 draw. Can you tell people about that?
Yeah. So far, the jackpot's at about $200,000, which is quite exciting. So if you don't win a house, you can at least win a down payment on a house. So that's a win. And then that's just going to grow from there. So we have, I think, up to 50,000 tickets that we can sell on the 50-50. So lots of room to still grow it. They're $25 each. So kind of a little bit for everybody. If that meets your budget needs, we've got the 50-50. And then with the Dream Home tickets at $100, we're only selling 25,000 tickets. So I feel like that's something we really want to communicate.
Yeah, that's not many tickets at all as tickets go.
It's not. And what's special about this house is it really is being built by our community. We've got community sponsors and partners, the builders local. So it's such a special community project in that regard. But with it only being 25,000 tickets, likely it is going to be somebody in our community. And like I said, a lot of our ticket purchasers have been local to Nanaimo. So I think that's kind of special too. And then if it's not someone from our community, we will be welcoming them to our community with open arms. So we're pretty excited about that.
No kidding. So when I think about the house, and I think about the potential for a Nanaimo perhaps to win the house, some home lotteries give you a choice of either you win the house or you can have the cash equivalent. In our case, that's not the plan, right? It's just the house. Yeah. And the 50-50 draw for sure.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. You could sell the house if you wanted the cash for it instead. But I think once you see the house, you're not going to want to sell it.
I don't think I want to sell it. No, I think it's probably quite stunning. And so, and can people drive by the house and see it? Where's it located?
So it's
in the heart of the foothills is.
Yeah. So it's still an active construction site. So we're building as we chat. So you can drive by, but since it's an active construction site, it might be better. Yeah, it might be better to wait until you have your keys and you can go on in. But we will definitely be doing virtual tours and things like that post ticket sales. we're just waiting until we're a little bit further along before we do that.
Completely understandable. And as you said, with the challenges of COVID, getting materials, getting all of these things has been a lot more challenging than was expected. And so how is that actually translated for you guys in the availability of when the house was open, or like in your own timeline? Was there a holdback because of the ability to get product?
So we were fortunate from a product perspective that it didn't affect our timeline too much. We did hit those weather delays though.
Between that we had out of nowhere.
Yeah, and the extreme heat in the summer.
Yeah.
And we did have significant site work to do to the land before we started foundation. So that's kind of where our delays were. We were able to mitigate kind of the supply chain challenges basically because we just had a very strong sense of the pulse on that. So things like appliances that people are waiting years to get, we did that before we did foundation of the house kind of thing. Like we were really kind of ahead of the game for certain things. So I think from a supply chain perspective, we're okay now. But those weather delays, unfortunately, you can foresee them, but you can't do anything about them.
No, that's very true. Yeah. Absolutely. I wasn't even here during the winter storm that we had in Nanaimo at the time. No, it was worse. I was in Fort McMurray where it was like minus 40, minus 38 most days, and once in a while minus 48, minus 52. Yeah, no, I don't even understand how people work and play and live in that environment. Not happening for me. But here, the weight of the snow is so very different as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still very weighted snow when you get into Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, but with the moisture that we have on the island, it's very wet snow and packs heavy. Was there any damage that was seen as a result of the heat and I know that wouldn't be part of the home lottery piece. So in all fairness, anything that would be there would be obviously well fixed and all of that sort of stuff. I'm just, from the logistics perspective, I'm curious.
So we were okay. It was more couldn't work through it. So with the heat wave, obviously, I think that was kind of an industry-wide thing. Hours were greatly reduced on sites. And then from the winter out of nowhere perspective, we were just about to kind of do foundation. So we just held off. So that's the stage that we were at. So we didn't see any damage, which is fantastic. But so we just had to hold off a few weeks, and now we have a very beautiful foundation. It's lovely.
I'm sure it's a beautiful home, and when it's all finished and ready to go, people will be thrilled. Now's a good time to tell them where to get tickets. How can people get those tickets?
So you can get tickets online at NanaimoHospice.com. So it's right on the Nanaimo Hospice website, and just look for the Dream Home Lottery menu at the top. If you'd like to do them in person, you can also give my assistant a call, Hillary, at 250-755-1366. And she'll be able to help you kind of navigate that process. You can either do it over the phone for you, or we can meet. Paige, the executive director, and I are quite willing and able to meet wherever you need to meet. Absolutely. And that's a wonderful thing. I'll get you to repeat that phone number just to make sure that people have a chance to write it down. Yeah. So it's 250-755-1366. And it's Hillary, and she's on the Canadian home builder side of the table, but she is amazing and willing to help. As long as the people are connected to this project are amazing. All of them, everyone. We like them. Just ask us. No kidding, right? I'd like to dive in a little bit more to some of the people in the community who have contributed to this project. So you did mention was the home builder Maverick Home Builders? Could you repeat that? It's Momentum. Momentum Design. Thank you, Momentum. We really appreciate that you were part of this. Can you share some of the other contributors? Yeah, so with Momentum Design Build, so they are a Hazelwood company. So I would say the family of the Hazelwood group has been beyond amazing. So they did a lot of the site work. The Dunk Pools is also under their umbrella. K2 Stone. Basically, if they're connected to Hazelwood, they're connected to the Dream Home, I think, at this point. So they've been an incredible partner. We've mentioned the Foothills already, but I don't think we could say thank you enough to them, because they really were the first step in kind of getting this going. Osprey Electric has donated the electrical services to the project as well. Erickson Roofing, United Flooring, Vancouver Island University, we are doing a partnership with them, which is pretty amazing too. You're going to hear me say that a lot. It's amazing and exciting because it really is.
It really is. It's the right word. Yeah.
So with VIU, we're doing a partnership. So they're going to bring some students out and they're going to get to see like different building technologies. Also, they're going to be helping with framing at different stages as well. We're bringing a supplier there. We did a ICF Foundation, so an insulated concrete form, and the supplier is going to do an in-class sort of session with the students, and then we're going to do a site tour with them as well. So that's fantastic.
Wow, I love that school partnership. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
It's great.
You know, none of these things happen without the community's participation and getting involved in it. But to see so many, you know, you often hear a lot about what nonprofits are doing for agency or for community. But when you hear about organizations that are profit ventures, businesses and community, we often don't shout out enough to the businesses that provide services to help community just be better. And it may not be the be better because the person who lives in the house, but it's the be better because of all of the dollars that were contributed. Everything you didn't have to pay for goes directly into service provision for so many people. And I know that hospice also works with a lot of ages. Last year or the year before, it was before COVID, I think, but just, you know, not much before, they'd gotten a new bus to help with childhood trauma and for kids that are going through the grief process. And I was talking with Paige yesterday, actually, and she mentioned to me that the youngest participant was 3 years old and the oldest was over 90. So, you know, how do people reconcile with that? Like, it's such a vast amount of people that are served. What do you think that that these businesses are feeling when they're putting their dollars towards helping so many people?
Yeah, and I think I'll talk about like my personal connection to it as well. So when I was asked to take the meeting, because obviously it makes sense to reach out to the Home Builders Association when you're thinking about doing a home build. So I took the meeting as, you know, a community courtesy. I didn't have a ton of personal knowledge with hospice. Like I knew, you know, death and dying. I knew that they were there for people in those kind of end of life care sort of situations. And then within the first 10 minutes, they were giving me kind of their suite of services and what they do and what they provide. And we got into talking about the little one. And I believe it was a set of sisters or siblings anyways, that were 3 and 5. And I was like, my heart, I have 2 small kids as well. And I was thinking like, how amazing is this, that they like, it's a beautiful service to be able to offer that grace to those that are passing as well. That is an amazing service as well. But as a mom, my heart just like exploded, I think, thinking about these little ones that are receiving these services as they're grieving somebody extremely important to them. And I just thought that was so amazing. And so these are things that we share when we're having the conversations with the different community organizations. They've shared either they've personally lost somebody and utilized hospice services, or they know somebody who has, and it's important to them. We have incredible companies that are just like, this is a community organization. We're happy to support it. This is great. But there's been a lot of sharing of personal stories of things that people have experienced. And that I think is really the weight behind their gift to us.
But I also think truly that, you know, the former executive director has been on the program several times over the years. And, you know, he used to say, and he was a great human. He used to say that there isn't a single person, or maybe it was Jeannie, it was one of the two of them anyway, said that, you know, there isn't really a person at all in society that hasn't been infected in one way or another by death, right? And so that ability to have this universal conversation, whether we've experienced it in the moment or recently, there will be a time in our lives, and every single one of us will be affected by it, and in some ways transformed by it. But when you think about these little tiny people that are just, they're busy with their crayons and they're busy with their stuff, and they're really so innocent and so pure and so beautiful. And for them to know that something is different, but not really understand how they feel about it, and then to have these amazing caring volunteers and trained staff sit with these children and help them to assimilate the information, figure it out, work with it, grow with it, understand it, and just hold space for it is, to me, the most outstanding gift of all, right? I mean, a little person doesn't understand.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've seen this project through the eyes of my kids at 7 and 9 years old. So my 7-year-old, little oblivious to the world. He sees things with some rose-colored glasses, but because we're doing so much with hospice, the hospice logo is on my car. My son was asking, he's like, but you're with the home builders, like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I don't understand.
So I'm trying to explain a bit about the project. And so we did the hospice hike in the fall, and I brought the kids. And so they're like, so what is the money? What is it going towards? And so I was explaining to them, when kids or adults or somebody has lost someone, and I'm trying to explain how the money goes to supporting people through their grief, supporting people when they're passing away. And my little guy ran to his piggy bank and grabbed it. His own money, and was so excited to hand it to Paige as soon as we got to hike. And he said, I just want you to help people, because when my dog died, I was so sad, and I don't want people to feel like that. And like my heart, explodes. And because that's his only, he's so fortunate at 7 years old. He's never really known anyone to pass away other than our dog and our cat. And that was very real to him, because those are his best friends. When the pets passed away, like, this is the worst day of my life, man. So, it's so neat to watch the little ones. And then he was pretty proud of his donation that day.
Well, he should have been pretty proud of it. What a good boy. You've raised a wonderful child.
I take no credit for him. He is his own human. Like, that's all him.
I totally understand. I really do. I love being a mom. It's the greatest thing. And to watch your children when they show up and they do amazing things, simple, gentle, wonderful, caring, loving things, the pride is just extraordinary. There's nothing like it in the world. But I also think that grief part about losing his pet is big too, because I know for certain that many people, and I know that there are counselors that help with this as well. Many of my listeners know that I've had 2 Jack Russells that passed away over the last year. I lost them 8 weeks apart from each other. And what was hard about it was, first of all, I didn't realize I was going to grieve so deeply. But it really did trigger other grief that I've experienced in my life. I was inconsolable for a while. I just shut down my world. And don't get me wrong. It was always a celebration of life for my girls, because they were such amazing little creatures. But again, that childlike part of you, right? Like, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, there is an inside of us that are always small little children. And when we're triggered by these things and don't realize we're being triggered by them, it's such a wonderful feeling to know that there's somebody in community that you can call and say, I'm having some stuff with grief right now. I don't know how to process this. Mm-hmm. And then to have somebody sit down and say, hey, I've been there. I understand. Let's talk about this a bit. Let's hold space for this. Let's let it out of your system. Let it off of your chest. Talk. That sense of relief for the recipient is outstanding. And I know that it wouldn't be possible without the trained, and this is so important, is the trained navigators through the grief process. They know how to just hear what's happening without judgment. It's a peaceful place.
Absolutely. That just holding space for people is incredible. And depth of loss, regardless of the relationship, or like whether it's a pet, whether it's a sister, like that depth of loss is so deep. And I think it's such amazing work that they do. It's
incredible. But I also want to add to that part of the conversation again with COVID, right? There was so many people that were dying alone. so many people that were dying alone. The heat dome, over 400 older adults in our province were passed away. The inability to be with the care facilities and to sit with loved ones when they were experiencing either COVID symptoms or just loneliness, sheer loneliness. And to know that again, that's another form of grief, a big form of grief. That place where people assume it's just death, but it's not just death. It's loss, change, all of those things. And hospice isn't just known for the death and dying, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a misnomer. That's not
Absolutely.
at all what hospice is only known for. They do so much more, much more. Yeah.
I agree. And to that point with COVID, like dying alone is one of the things that like hurts my heart, thinking about people being alone in those vulnerable hours. Like that's heart-wrenching. But also it also was a bit of a constraint for being able to grieve properly as well. Like you're either holding on or holding back until you get that celebrative life opportunity, or I mean, they did some funerals online and things like that. But I think that there's going to be some challenges for the next foreseeable future, because without being able to say goodbye in the way that you needed to, or the way that your brain was trained to think that this is how I say goodbye to those people that I love, I think we're going to see the ramifications of that for a while, because you have to move through that grief. You have to feel it and you have to process it. And I think we've got lots of work to do on that side of the table. And I think that we're already seeing it with the wait lists that hospice has. Like people are calling all the time and needing services.
I think that's an important component to this conversation. It's the wait list factor. The need is so great out there on so many levels that the dollars that are raised from the 50-50 draw and the Dream Home Lottery are going to allow people to get those services that they need. So the money itself, is secondary to all of it. It's the most important piece so those services can be made. But Absolutely. It's secondary to the services that are made. The people, there's this understanding, well, so they're volunteering. It's not like people get paid anyway.
But there's space, like there's training, there's the space that's needed,
right. I think that's what I'm saying is there's this complete misunderstanding over what it takes to be able to do this. And again, I can't stress the training, right? Most of the volunteers go through several weeks of very deep training. It's one thing to hold space for someone. It's another thing to know how to identify what's truly happening in a difficult situation. It's hard work. We've talked about that a lot already. But it takes money to train these people. It takes money to ensure that the housing is there. It takes money to ensure that the support mechanisms are in place. It takes money to hopefully have a place for people to go, which is, again, the extension of why we're doing this in the first place. Yeah. Right. I can't stress enough the value and the importance of doing this, which is a perfect time for you once again to tell us how people can get their tickets.
Absolutely. So online, you can get them at nanaimohospice.com and just look for the little banner at the top that says Dream Home. And then you can also get them by calling us at 250-755-1366. And Hillary will be happy to help you out with some tickets as well. And then if you need us to come to you, we can absolutely make that happen. We are in the business of making dreams happen today.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Do what we need to do to get these tickets sold.
This will be making dreams happen soon, right now. I can't wait till there's an opportunity actually for us to be able to walk through the house or to be able to share with community. I would love to stay connected once this program is done and the ticket's done, and to have another little conversation with you and the community participant who wins, and just like that would be awesome. But in the meantime, it's really, really important for people to get out there and get those tickets. And you said that there was a deadline as well. The deadline again was?
So it's April 7th at 11:59 p.m.
So if you get your tickets at 11:58, you're still good to go.
You are. But don't leave it that late.
Don't leave it that late. No, get your tickets.
Do it today.
More than one. Yeah. Buy one for a loved one. Buy one in honor of your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, someone that has affected you in some way. You know, and if you can't afford to buy more than one ticket, that's cool too. You know, any contribution that you can make to hospice, it doesn't have to be through this lottery. You can still donate to hospice, and you know, $5 plus $5 plus $5 plus $5 means that there's $20 instead of $0. So feel free to go ahead and put your money wherever you need to put it. The lottery is one way to do it, but it's not the only way, for sure.
Exactly. And if you can't support hospice right now, if you follow us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram for the Dream Home Project, it's Hospice Dreamers for both Facebook and Instagram, and just share our posts. So even if you can't buy a ticket, you might be able to help us sell tickets to those in your network. So it's an easy way.
You know, I never even thought about that, but that's absolutely true. So how do people find you on Facebook? Is it under Hospice Dream Lottery, or how is it listed under Facebook?
Yeah, so our handle for Facebook is Hospice Dreamers.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
then
just said that. My apologies.
That's okay.
That's okay. First day with my new brain.
Great to say it again. Mondays. So Hospice Dreamers for Facebook and Hospice Dreamers also for Instagram. And really we're paying a nod to the fact that, first of all, we are supporting hospice. It's a dream home, but also we have the hospice dream of being able to build a standalone hospice facility. So we're kind of wrapping it all up with our Hospice Dreamers handle. So yeah, follow us and share our posts. That's the easiest way to be able to help us sell these tickets.
Wonderful. Well, we have a little bit more time left of our program. Not a lot, but we have a little bit left of our program. So we can tell, we're going to shout it out one more time before we close off for today. A couple of things that I think that have stood out for me, though, is that, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, how people can receive hospice and the different things that happen to it that are, pardon me, programs and services that are offered through hospice. And once again, it's Monday and it's the first day with my new mouth. But I'm curious from the perspective of yourself and your connection now that you've gone through this whole process, right? And you know, I think that a lot of the time of the behind the scenes stuff doesn't really get shared. And I would have no intention of throwing you underneath the bus, but I'm curious about if over the last couple of years that you've been helping along this road, or since you've taken it on, has there been a moment in yourself where you realize just the grandeur of what it is that hospice is trying to do right now? And what happened for you when you experienced that?
For sure. So I think there's been a multitude of moments because I would say I was welcomed in to the whole hospice family very quickly. So after our first meeting, I went to the house and got to meet tons of the staff. And so it's just incredible to see how everybody has such an important part and everybody's doing their piece. So that in terms of the staff level, I was really wowed by how passionate these individuals are, how important their work is to them. Because I already knew from the community side how important it was, but like when you see the people that are working there and it is part of them, they are special individuals and they do these jobs for a reason. And I think it's because it speaks to them as humans. And then further to that, I've attended some of the volunteer events. So like we went to the hike as a family and seeing the volunteers and the incredible humans they are. And it's been really neat to watch this process kind of unfold and to really learn. I meet with their board on a regular basis because we do updates about the Dream Home. So that's obviously a volunteer in a different capacity, but the people that are connected to hospice are one of a kind. Like it's been a beautiful experience to get to know them all and to see how important their work is to them. And so we're trying to work our little tail feathers off to get this Dream Home to get this Dream Home, the tickets sold and to get it built and do all that really to show them how much the community appreciates what they do. So I think that's one of the key things that I've learned through this process. And then I would say, like, lastly, so the executive director that's in there now. She came on, I think, December of 2020. And it's been really neat to watch how she's taken some new roads, and it's been incredible to work with her and getting to know her as well. So there's been so many pieces to this, and I feel like I'm very fortunate. I'm so lucky to have gotten to work with them and to be part of the project, and it's been definitely a highlight of my career so far. So it's been good.
No kidding. I love how you equate it to the people, though, because I think that people forget that there are hundreds and hundreds of people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And everyone who's behind the scenes and is part of the front and center of it all have such a great love for the whole project and the whole community, right? And they care about people. And so it's people helping people, it's people supporting people, it's people listening to people. And we need more of that right now, I think, in society, don't you think?
Absolutely. And you can tell it's innate to them. Like, it is part of them to be there and to show up for these people and to be there for the community. Like, it's really, I don't really think I have the words to articulate it as much as I feel it. Like, it's been amazing to watch.
Well, Maya Angelou always said, and this is, I'm going to misquote her. I know I'm misquoting her. People will forget about what you say, and people will forget about what you do and all of that stuff, but they will never, ever, ever forget the way you make them feel.
Absolutely.
And the people of hospice, they know how to make people feel safe and comfortable and supported and held in some of the darkest days of their lives, regardless of whether it's to do with a death or passing or what have you. And a lot of people don't also know, to be honest with you, that grieving, there isn't a timeline for grieving. It's not like somebody passes away and like 3 days later, you're supposed to be over it and away we go, or 3 weeks even for that matter. You know, for a lot of people, myself included, you know, you're so busy in the process of looking after the passing of somebody that you love, that the mechanical side of things, you know, the trusts, the banking information, the closing of accounts, the moving of the furniture, the distribution of stuff, like all of that. Anniversaries, like all of those things that the actual grieving hasn't had a chance to participate, to happen to some people, especially those that are executors of the estates that are close to family members, and they're dealing with managing all of the stuff that goes with somebody passing over. So they don't get to have an opportunity to grieve in the moment because they're too busy getting stuff done. And so when you lose someone, it's okay, that window doesn't close. I can't go see somebody from hospice because it's only been, it's already been 12 weeks or 12 months or whatever since Joe died or Susan died or whatever, right? And so I think that people have to understand that grief in itself is a process that is not a one size fits all. Every single person on the planet, like a fingerprint, like a personality, are entirely different from the other. And there is no such thing as the right way to grieve.
Yeah. And grief is a wave, right?
It's a wave. Yeah.
Like it's going to come and it's going to rear and it's going to be huge. And then it's going to slow for a bit and you're going to think you're okay until you see that sign that reminds you of so-and-so, and like it comes up again, and that's okay. And I think that's the other beauty to hospice, is that there isn't, to your point, a timeline. I think as humans, we feel that there is a timeline to our grief with our own networks, with our people. Like, oh, I can't call so-and-so again and complain about that thing that happened.
Yeah, so true.
But there isn't a timeline with a community like hospice. And if you need that support, absolutely reach out to them. Because I think we as people need to do that more often and not take it on and burden it. Like your body holds it. You're going to hold on to that. So you got to work with the people that can help you kind of release that.
You're absolutely right. And it, for myself, I'm going to make a giggle hill for people so that they're busy, reaching for their checkbooks to add a little bit more. But for me, after my mom passed away and my sister, because they were only 8 months apart from each other. It was a really, and my sister, Colleen, was very short. She was diagnosed of leukemia, and within 8 days she was gone. My mother was a year and a day. Right. So they were short times, but they were in the grieving process. They were huge because I had just started to move on from my mother, just starting. And then my sister, of course, was gone very quickly after that. But what happened for me is in the conversation, I wasn't able to grieve because I was busy managing a new husband, my child was young. My world was just different. And so I was standing over some cantaloupes one day in the Save on Foods. And I picked up a cantaloupe, and I all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just lost it over cantaloupe, right? And I realized it was because my mother used to cut a cantaloupe in half, and then she would center out it was like the big treat for her. She cut out all the seeds and all of that stuff, and she would eat a half a cantaloupe as a meal. Like she just loved it. And so 3 years after she was gone and everything had settled and everything was gone, I was completely taken aback by my reaction 3 years later.
I had a similar experience. I had to pull a car over on the side of the road, but I was 21 when my dad died, and similar. It was a short period of illness from, I think, diagnosis to death. We're talking 6 weeks. And now, luckily for him, he was only sick for like 2 of those weeks. Like he was still jogging and whatnot for some of it. But anyways, so I was 21, super young. And it was probably 2 years later, I was driving my car, and I wasn't married at the time, didn't have kids. And so it was 2 years later, and a country song came on the radio of like, it sounds like a first dance kind of song.
Yeah.
My marbles. And I was like, I'm not going to have my dad there for that. And just totally lost it. Like you think you're fine, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks. But there's also beauty in those moments, right? Like
so much so. Yeah.
It's hard when you miss those people that were so important to you and still are. I shouldn't say was, they're still so important to you, even if they're not here. And I remember like I pulled my car over and I'm bawling my face off. And then I laughed because I was thinking my dad would be like, Carrie Ann, come on, you're good. Like, and so you have those moments where you know what they would have said, and and it's, so there's some beauty in the grief, but yeah, it's tough when you lose those people, and I just can't say enough good things about hospice and the supports that they provide. So.
And you know what? That's the reason why we're having the conversation today, right? It's about that. And I think that I also, I'm a big teacher from way back, and I just want people to be inspired by the concept and the idea that it's okay, no matter what is you're going through from a perspective of the grief process. You are standing with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of generations that say, it's okay. Right? Like every culture has its own grieving process. Every, society has their own way of dealing with things for sure. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. For the millions of people that walk the planet, every single person has experienced death. If it isn't in other people, it's certainly their own. Right. Yeah. And there is that process as well that happens before you die. Right. And hospice was there for that too. I remember the hospice volunteers going into the hospital with my mother in her last days, especially Colleen, not so much, because by the time that hospice got involved, it was just too quick, and she was not coherent any longer, and, attached to a lot of machines and all that stuff. But in my mother's case, the hospice volunteers were coming in and asking her, like, how do you feel? How are you with all of this? Are you feeling at peace? Is there some anxiety? How can we work through some of that anxiety? Yeah. And so I invite people to consider this themselves, especially if they're older adults and they're really feeling that, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I'm really afraid. There is a volunteer that will be able to help you, and hospice can help you find that volunteer for sure. So please reach out.
Yeah, and such a beautiful service too, right? I shouldn't say service, but for lack of a better word, what a beautiful experience that they're able to offer those in that time. Like, it was also so quick for Dad, so we didn't utilize hospice services, but he was a police officer, a strong man, only had daughters, raised us all super strong. And And I think what a beautiful thing it would have been to be able to be vulnerable. I mean, he was still also like squishy, mushy daddy too, but like,
His daddy.
I mean, but he wouldn't want, he would never have put that on us. He would never have said like, I'm scared or like about dying, because he wouldn't want to hurt us. And so what a beautiful service that can offer, that the hospice volunteers can hold space for people going through that, and they're not taking their bag of worry and throwing it on their kids or their sister or their whatever. And it's such a neat process. I remember reading a book, it's called The Council of Dads, and I read it shortly after my dad died. And the concept is that a man finds out he's terminally ill, and he has daughters. And so he finds, I can't remember how many, let's say 6 men that represent different aspects of his personality. And he writes these men letters, and he says, right? Like,
oh my God,
what works? So he writes these men letters and said, like, you're going to be on the Council of Dads. And so when my girls need something, they're coming to you for business advice. They're coming to you for dating advice, like whatever it is. And it's a beautiful book. And I remember thinking like, and the man shares, like, because he's scared and similar. He doesn't want to put this on his kids or on his wife, but he's got to make sure that he's doing all the things to make sure everything's in the right spots. And I know my dad had conversations with people, not necessarily in the Council of Dads perspective, but I've been privy to hearing conversations from friends of his after that he was kind of essentially trying to do that for us, and such a neat concept. And yeah, so I think it's a good book.
Thank you so much for the share. I'd like you to send me a note with that name. I'd love to read that.
Sure.
I will add it to the link for Zoom as well, or not for Zoom. I'm sorry, for YouTube. Oh my gosh, we've come to the end of the program, and I'm like, I just want to talk to you more and more and more. There's so much to share, but what we really want to do is a call to action at this point. Let's tell our audience one more time how they can get those tickets, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. So on the website, it's the nanaimohospice.com. If you want to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, even just to follow along and see how we're coming with the project, it's Hospice Dreamers for both Instagram and Facebook. And if you need to call us to help you through the process online buying tickets, or to arrange a time for us to meet you to buy tickets, it's 250-755-1366.
Thank you so much for being part of today's program. Like, I just want to say how much I value you and the work that you've done to help make this come into fruition for all of us, for anyone who uses hospice services. You're doing God's work. And so thank you so much for that. Much appreciated in every single way. Because I don't have time to even get the life lesson here. You got 30 seconds to tell me, what would your takeaway be from today that we could share and imbibe to our community?
I think the biggest takeaway is really that hospice, while it's a place, it really is a feeling. Like, getting to know them in the last 2 years, like, my heart has grown, I think 4 sizes. Like, it's just an incredible organization. So
it really is. Thanks again for being my guest. I am just so delighted that you came today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Act 3 every Monday at 1 o'clock on CHLY 101.7. Listen, you are going to want to get the information that we talked about, so don't be afraid to go to the YouTube station. It will be up tomorrow morning as of 8 o'clock in the morning, and you can click right onto those links and go and get tickets from there if you like, or by all means, if you just remember hospice, type in hospice. That's all you have to do. Meanwhile, thanks again for being part of the show today, and have yourself an amazing day. Enjoy. Bye for now.